What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys have been doing well. Now, quick note, today's video is getting posted on Easter Sunday. So if you guys don't celebrate Easter, happy Easter. If you don't celebrate Easter, just happy Sunday to everybody. So once I read the first article for this story, I knew I had to share this story because honestly, I laughed at this story the first time I read it, to be completely honest. Maybe I shouldn't have laughed. I'll let you guys decide that in the comments below. But I found at least some comedy within this story, because comparatively speaking, to especially the last video, no one gets unalived in this video. You know, no one is unalive at the end of this video. So there is no death in this video. So for those of you guys that don't like the death content, this video is for you. Now, today's video comes from a town, I believe it's outside of Buffalo, named Hamburg, New York. A guy named Tom Cavallaro, I believe is what his name is. That was a mouthful. But he bought an alligator like 30, 40 years ago almost, and it just got confiscated from his suburban home. He named this alligator Albert. So that's the story we're going to be talking about today. Man gets pet alligator, confiscated from his suburban New York State home. Now, to me, this has Florida man style news articles all over it, but it just didn't happen in Florida. So it didn't really make national news from what I saw. There's a change.org petition, but I'll get into that in a minute. But for those of you that are from New York, anywhere in New York State, you guys know a lot of really weird stuff always happens in New York, but it just doesn't really always make national and international news as much as the Florida man content does. But you guys know that just as much weird and crazy stuff happens in the state of New York as does Florida or anywhere else in the world. It just doesn't always get talked about. Maybe it's because New Yorkers are viewed as a lot more harsh, comparatively speaking. I don't know. Let's just spitballing. So let's get into this story, shall we? Now, about 30 or 40 years ago, like I said, this guy Tom buys this probably baby alligator at the point from out of state in Ohio. He brings it back to his home in New York, where he obviously raises it. He probably had it in a tank somewhere in his house. I don't know what his initial setup is. And obviously the alligator just kept getting bigger, because by the time this story happens, this is a 12-foot, almost 800-pound alligator. So that's a pretty big alligator. So at some point, as this alligator keeps growing, he obviously thinks to himself, I need somewhere else to keep this alligator. Let me build an addition onto my house, to my suburban house, where I have neighbors who have poodles and crap. I don't know what his neighbors are like. But he's like, let me build an addition onto my house so I can house this alligator, right? So he builds $120,000 addition onto his house. He puts a pool in for this alligator. He puts fish in the pond. It looks like, if you see the pictures, a not terrible enclosure, but we'll get into that all in a second, like I said. So he builds this enclosure, and the entire neighborhood knew he had this alligator. This wasn't a secret he was trying to keep from his neighbors in the state of New York. Everyone knew that he had this alligator. This wasn't just like I said, it wasn't a secret that he was trying to keep from the whole world, that he was secretly, had this pet alligator. So apparently how it comes down to the confiscation is one day he's out, running errands or doing whatever he usually does. And then he gets home, and then there are several law enforcement and conservation agencies at his home with a warrant to seize this alligator. And he's obviously upset if you look at it from his perspective. He's like, this is my pet. You guys can't just take him. And they're like, no, we're going to take him. So they seize the alligator. New York State's we're not going to give this gator back. So let's get into that. The alligator's been seized. So let's get into the why. So New York State says there have been several violations on his part. There was violations of construction laws, from what I read, based on how the construction of his house was built. The permits weren't updated. They changed the laws as far as dangerous animal laws and stuff like that. And they're like, even if he hadn't violated like these like dangerous animal laws and stuff like that, he would have still violated these laws, because it was well known that he would let his neighbors and stuff like pet him and go swimming with him in his pool. So New York State and these conservation agencies are accusing him of multiple violations, including health violations for this gator, because the state is claiming that when this alligator was seized from his suburban home, I'm gonna keep reminding you guys of that, his suburban home. He didn't live like out in the countryside somewhere where he could just, do whatever he wanted, because he had the space to, keep whatever animals he desired. This was in his suburban house. He kept his alligator. They said, look, this alligator was blind in both eyes. This alligator had spinal issues. This alligator wasn't getting fed properly. Now, these were all allegations that Tom denies. He's like, look, he's my friend. I have been taking good care of him for 30 plus years. He's in good health. He says he was getting treated for cataracts, but he was not blind in both eyes and did not have spinal issues when he left his house. So basically he was saying he may have been having some eye issues, but other than that, I believe he was in perfect health when he left my house. So any other health issues that you might find are not my fault, essentially, is what he's saying. So he's retained a lawyer. So you might be asking yourself, at this point, this is probably where it goes. Where do we go from here, rather? What does he do? Where is his step? So his next step was immediately, I want my alligator back, because he was like, this is my pet. I want him back in my home. And it seems like the community, like his immediate community, like rallied around him. They're like, yeah, give the dude his alligator back. We don't care. He was a staple of our neighborhood. And also there was like, it looks to be like a change.org petition, and like petitions circulating online selling like free Albert t-shirts and free giving back home style merchandise. So rallying behind Tom to say, look, we want him to have his alligator back. And the state said, we might press charges on him. And that's really where this sits at the moment. He hasn't gotten this alligator back. I don't think he's going to get it back. The state said he might press charges. He's retained a lawyer. He wants his friend back. What he calls his friend, rather. He said, and I quote, "They treated me like a terrorist," which I really don't believe. I'm not the biggest, pro New York State, pro, state government, blah, blah, blah type guy. But like, I don't think because you had a pet alligator in your suburban home, you were treated like a terrorist. I could be wrong. I wasn't there. But I don't think they would have treated you like a terrorist because you had an alligator in your suburban house. They may have treated you strangely, but I don't think you would have been treated like a terrorist. So what are my thoughts on all this, right? The neighborhood, wants him to be able to have his alligator. They want him to be able to have what he called his friend back. I don't think he should get this alligator back, to be honest, because not necessarily because of all the reasons New York State has, but it's an alligator. If you wrote like a list, right? If I have a list right here of like dangerous animals that should not be pets, alligators and crocodiles for that matter are toward the top of that list. Some of the only animals that you rank above those types of animals are like venomous, can kill you without even biting you type like snakes and stuff like that. They can kill you with just like a drop of venom. So I don't think you should get this gator back. He shouldn't have even kept this gator in the first place. Why they waited 30 plus years to confiscate it, I don't know. Stuff gets lost in the bureaucracy machine all the time. So they may have intended 2 years ago, but just probably had other things to do as far as conservation and dealing with other issues. This may not have been an issue high on their list. Maybe it was. I don't know, but that's really where this sits. It's really a short story. I found it funny that a guy in New York State had an alligator, because my first thought was, where the heck did he even get an alligator? And the fact that he wants this alligator back in his suburban house is hilarious, because he's like, oh, he likes his pillows. He cuddles next to my mother. I'm like I thought that he should keep this pet alligator, even if I thought he should be able to keep the enclosure, why would you let this almost 800-pound meat-eating machine sit next to your mother? I mean, I don't believe that you could train that alligator that well, or you can train an animal specifically like an alligator like that well, where you could trust it next to your mother, next to people that you like. I wouldn't do that, even if maybe I'm wrong here because I'm not an alligator expert, but I don't think this guy should get this gator back. Now, I hope that the gator was in relatively good health, but if he's not, he should face charges for animal abuse, because it's abuse, because it would be abuse because he wouldn't have been properly taking care of the animal. But I just hope it's found that he didn't abuse the animal, but he just shouldn't have kept it in his house in the first place. So hopefully that's the extent of what happens, in my opinion. Hopefully they determine that this alligator isn't terribly unhealthy, but they're like, yeah, we're not going to give you this gator back. We're going to give it to someone who actually knows how to properly take care of this animal and animals like this. So yeah, that's the story, guys. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think this guy should get his alligator back? If so, put hashtag free Albert in the comments, or put hashtag don't give Albert back if you don't believe he should get back. If you like this video, like the video, comment on it, share it, go back and watch all my other videos, subscribe, email it to your grandma, hold a seance so you can get all your ghost friends to watch it, all that jazz. So until next time, guys, stay safe and have fun.